You're watching another Element Eval.
What?
What's up, y'all? Today we are reviewing the Exodus Lift 2.
This camera shoots full HD video, great stills, has tons of features, and a great warranty for $229.
That's right. If you want to hear more things about great trail cameras, see more videos like this, be sure and subscribe below and hit the like button so that we know that you are way cooler than us.
You're way cooler than us. As usual, let's start with the bad. For some reason, trail cameras are still doing this thing. Okay, this.
I don't know where it became a good idea to put this big ugly strap in trail cameras, but we don't ever use them. Pretty much any camera we get, we replace with bungee cords, and they work awesome.
Outside of that strap, probably one of the worst things about this camera is the price. For guys like us, at least, $229 is pretty high. But there are a lot of great features that you get with a price tag like that.
You do get a good camera. Another small thing that you do have to consider when you do have a high-end camera like this is going to be battery use and card storage, okay? The larger files, the videos, stuff like that, they use a bunch of battery. I had occasions where batteries only lasted like 2 weeks, even in the warmer time of the year, because I was running so many videos. Now, that's partially because we have so many hogs and they take up a ton of video space, okay? But just that card space and battery use is something you do have to watch out for on this camera.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're using video mode on a camera, it's always, you know, storage and battery use are going to be things, right?
Yeah.
But it almost seemed like sometimes it was a lot.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know. I haven't used a ton of 30-second video files from different cameras, which is a cool option about this, but definitely got to be cognizant of that.
30 seconds of hogs, 288 times a night
Terrible.
can use up a lot of card space. But honestly, that's about all there is that's bad about this camera.
Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe the double clip thing is kind of an annoyance sometimes, closing both clips on each side as you get ready to open the camera or close it. It's just a little extra time. It's one of those first world problems, right? But at the same time, you know, you do know that you're like closed up and no rain or anything can get in there, no ants, that kind of thing.
Now for the good.
The picture quality, the video quality is outstanding on these cameras. That's something that I love about this camera, is that when I take a picture with it or a video, it can go to social media on our account, which we try to put high quality content on. And I don't feel bad about putting that on our channel at all. You're not gonna be like, oh, what is that foggy looking, you know, weird chupacabra on there or whatever.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Even with a video, I mean, you can see like dust particles in the air. I don't know how many pixels a dust particle is, but it's pretty small.
I mean, I don't know how many raccoons you had at your place last year.
They were raging raccoons.
He was all about the dusty raccoons last year.
Another cool thing about the video is I feel like that the exposure adjusts very quickly. So you don't ever run into, and on pictures too, you don't ever run into a situation where you have like a really dark, just a picture that you can't make out or video that you can't make out. It's pretty much instant. It's going to adjust to whatever daylight or nighttime situation you have and give you the best image possible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of times at night with cheap cameras, you'll have something that's really blown out when you have a camera or a deer up close to the camera. Something will be just completely white, blown out. And this camera does a really good job of quickly adjusting as soon as a video clip starts. Because honestly, like in the rut or something like that, if a buck crosses in front of your camera at close range, it's probably going to be pretty quick, and you need to be able to see and identify what that is. I mean, that's the reason the camera's out there, so you want to see that.
Unless you're getting pictures of the deer, they don't really serve a purpose, right? So you got to get the picture of the deer. Along with that comes trigger speed.
Yeah.
I feel like these cameras have great trigger speed, but that is battery dependent.
For sure, yeah. If your batteries start to wane and get a little bit low, or if you're using cheap batteries, which I've never done that at all.
Which is really okay in the hot weather, but when
Sure.
the temperatures start dropping, you probably need to move to those more expensive, maybe lithium batteries.
Yeah, and you'll be able to catch a lot more of those bucks cruising through, you know, right off the bat when they get there. I mean, the trigger speed is awesome. We'll show a couple of clips here just as examples.
One of the cool things about the trigger speed on this camera in particular is that I found in other cheaper trail cameras that sometimes the trigger speed might be pretty good on photo, but as soon as you swap to video, it really lags. I mean, we're talking about 1.5, 2 second lags on trigger speed for videos on some of the cheaper cameras. Not this camera. It's pretty much instantaneous.
Yeah, for sure. There are a ton of features that this camera has to offer, so let's go through a few of those. I've been waiting for that to happen.
One of the nice features of this camera, which is something I've never been able to use before, is a security code. It's super handy when you're talking about public land situations where you might have people coming in trying to steal your information, steal your cameras, that sort of thing. You can be assured that as long as they don't know your little PIN number, they're not going to be able to get to the stuff inside your camera.
Yeah, one thing, we made a dumb move last year. We named a couple of cameras after deer that we were chasing. But I felt okay about it because we were running security codes. But I thought, man, you know, like we got to be careful because if we weren't running a security code, we name a camera after a deer that we're chasing. We talk about it on the podcast, and somebody puts that 2 and 2 together. You know, that could really give away a spot or a very particular spot. So, yeah, the security code is a big deal for us, but also for anybody. I mean, because we've had some of the guys at Exodus tell us that they have had people who have stolen cameras, called them up and said, hey, I forgot my security code, can you give it to me? And they say, hey, what's your name? And they can't answer that correctly because when you register the serial number inside this camera with Exodus, within 30-day window of getting the camera, they know who the camera belongs to, and therefore they could unlock it for you if you were the right person, but you might not be.
Yeah, and that registration is super important, but it's actually pretty easy to do, and really nice the fact that you have that kind of extra level of protection and warranty with this camera. I think there's a 5-year warranty on this camera where even if you like lose it or it gets damaged in a flood, it's stolen, whatever, I think it's a half price.
Yeah, you pay half price for a new camera of whatever new camera you want, I guess. But yeah, it's a 5-year warranty, and it's like no questions asked.
Yeah,
it's just half price. So that's pretty awesome. I don't know of any other company that's doing that right now.
Yeah, and as far as like just general features and picture or video taking modes, it has a couple neat options. It has a time-lapse option, which I've never really put into place. We don't do a lot of food plot stuff on most of our public land stuff, so not really a thing for us, but it's nice to have. One thing that is cool about it is that when you run this on video, you can also set it to take a single picture so that it kind of functions like a thumbnail, I think. So whenever you're going through your photos or videos or whatever, you can kind of see a snapshot of what actually that video entails. Therefore, you can kind of go in and say, okay, this is a video I actually need to spend 30 seconds watching.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Iowa private farm feature. Right?
It'd be real
like,
nice.
we got too many of these to go through. We're going to just click these as fast as we can and see on a quick look at what this is actually going to entail before we have to watch 30 seconds of hogs or raccoons.
Or another 30 seconds of hogs. Or another 30 seconds of hogs. And here more. Just like your camera, not mine.
That's really good. Glad.
Yeah, pretty much in general, it's a great camera. The picture taking mode is great. The video taking mode is great. One of the big things that we've noticed, especially on public land with jumpy, spooky deer, is that they've been able to pick up non-black flash cameras. Multiple times, especially when you're hanging a camera low in a deer's line of sight, they're able to pick up that light emitting from these little diodes or whatever that is inside this camera. This one, as you can see, is black around here. You can't tell that this thing is taking a picture whenever you're looking at it. You don't know if it's videoing you or if it's got a dead battery. So black flash is a huge thing.
Never had a deer spook from it that I've noticed on the camera. So, you know, apparently it's black.
And it also, something I've seen in some cameras, maybe that's because they're older too, some of them actually make an audible noise whenever they start to record a video or take a picture, and this one doesn't do that at all.
Frankly, when you're going back and forth through all these different options and looking at the internal of the camera here in your setup, it's a pretty easy to use setup. One thing that I like, this is something that it's not really a big deal for me, but for guys like my dad who can't run a trail camera to save his life correctly, at least, it says setup, you go to the right, it says on to the left, and it's off in the middle. So for my dad, like a lot of times he'll just set it up and then leave it and it's not on. Like, it's not to the on. You didn't press the next, like go to the next screen or whatever. So it's pretty much self-explanatory that you would set it up and then go into on. One thing that is a touch confusing, but is also a cool feature, is the fact that you can time out your camera essentially. So you can use it during certain hours. So for instance, you can't hunt deer at night, right? So And a lot of guys might say, well, I don't want to go through a bunch of night pictures because that doesn't really do me any good as far as like patterning this deer and having the option to hunt him. So I want to see what's in the daytime, and that'll save me a ton of time, especially on those private farms we were talking about earlier. So you can time it out from whatever time about sunset is to about the time the sun rises, and you can get a good idea of what's coming through your area during the daylight only and not have to deal with all the rest of the bullcorn.
That's right.
At nighttime.
And whenever you're using all these features, I found that the little circuit board on this camera is actually really easy to use. It's really easy to mess with. And one of the biggest things that we almost forgot to mention a while ago is that this camera has an LCD screen right here. Okay, guys? You can take selfies with this camera. You can see what's going on in this camera. What's more important is you can position this camera on the tree and then go stand out where you believe the deer are going to be and see how they're framing up in the camera. It's super helpful, especially if you're sitting this thing over a corn pile or a mineral station, something like that, and you really want it to be zoned in on a particular spot.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, like even you can use it in a public land setting as well, where like, man, I walked a mile in here and I want this thing to be on the trail. And when I come back in 2 months and put the effort in to go back another mile and sweat it out and get this thing, like I want to know that it was taking pictures right, you know. And that's something that every time we leave a cheap camera on public, we are a little bit like, man, I hope it does what it's supposed to do. So yeah, it's a great feature. You can pretty much that eliminates the step of like putting it into some kind of card reader after it takes a picture and seeing if it was framed right, and then taking it back out, put it in there, sitting, make sure it's on and everything. It's pretty much just turn it on, look at it, get it framed up, set it, and forget it.
That's right. That's kind of the main features of the internal parts of the camera. All in all, this thing is built like a tank. I mean, it is rock solid. It's pretty heavy. Not always a bad thing when you're talking about trail cameras. Usually heavy things are built well, and that's what this thing is. Never had one of these mess up on us or fail on us or anything. Nothing's broken on the back of this thing. Many times through all my years of using trail cameras, these little things on the back end up breaking. These little clips on the side end up breaking. Not this one. They're rock solid.
Yep. Lastly, on the outside here, it's got a couple of screw in ports for whatever kind of little trail camera accessories you might have, which that could be like a stick and pick type of deal, or some kind of tree mount or something like that. It's a screw in tree mount that allows you to position it in a certain angle up high or whatever. So I guess a little extra feature there. Also the audio, I believe this is the mic right here on the bottom, well placed. Good job, Exodus. The audio is actually really good on this camera. Like, it starts up pretty quick and takes really cool audio. So one thing that was at least fun for me running this last year was that I got to like listen to kind of the sounds of whatever was going on in that area where it was chasing. Yeah, for you it was that a lot. So it's pretty interesting though when a coyote runs by chasing a deer, you get to kind of hear the whole thing, you know.
Yeah,
so it's definitely
cool.
It's definitely cool. But
another thing that we really didn't mention that we probably should is the battery port on this camera. A lot of times the battery port is on the inside of this here box, or it's on the outside, but you have a button on the outside, something like that. Ends up where the battery port can be deployed without having to open this thing. This thing, the battery port button is on the inside. You press it and the battery port pops open and then you can get to it. No fear of your batteries falling out while the camera's stuck on the tree.
So all in all, we love this camera. Granted, it's expensive, but if you look through their social media and you keep an eye on what they're doing, a lot of times they'll run specials on these things. So do that for sure. Also, another thing you should do is like and subscribe to our channel here. Make sure you get notifications so that you can in the future see more trail camera videos like this one.
We want to know what kind of trail cameras you're running too. If you've had some success with any particular brands, be sure and comment that below. If you like these Exodus trail cameras, tell us why.
Remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
What?